Hi everyone, I hope everyone's having a good summer. I know I haven't made a video in a little bit. I've just been super busy, which is not a good excuse at all, but it's just the truth. But we're here today and we're breaking down Proverbs 8, which I'm super excited about, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, so Proverbs 8, the title for this section is Wisdom's Call, and sort of the overall message and what I took away from this is that at times in our lives when we have to make decisions, whether it be difficult decisions or simple decisions like in our everyday lives, how important it is to not get distracted by worldly influences that we might have on those decisions, but to really focus on what God would do in those situations and what decision that we make is going to better our relationship with Him. So I'm just going to read a few verses at a time and then talk about them after. So starting with verses 1 through 4, it says, "Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? At the highest point along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gate leading into the city, at the entrance she cries aloud. To you, O people, I call out. I raise my voice to all mankind." So just in these first verses, I feel like there's already a lot of reassurance and just the idea that wisdom's always calling out to us and always going to be there and always pushing to be in our lives. And I love in verse 2 when it says, "Where the paths meet, she takes her stand," because it makes me think about this idea that once the things in our life, we line that up with God's will, wisdom will automatically take over, and then it's exponential growth throughout our life from there, because of the wisdom that we have in our lives and the good decision making that we have in our lives. Alright, so those first verses really talk about how wisdom's always there for us, and then these next verses that I'm going to read, verses 5 through 8, talk about how wisdom will always be the right choice and what we want to lean into. So verse 5, "You who are simple gain prudence. You who are foolish set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. My mouth speaks what is true. For my lips detest wickedness. All the words of my mouth are just. None of them is crooked or perverse." So that word prudence in verse 5 means it's just careful and wise decision making in any situation in our life. And when I looked that up, it said in simple situations, which I think is so important, because a lot of times we'll lean into our wisdom in big decisions that we have to make in our life, but sometimes we'll forget about it in the small everyday life decisions that we have to make. And then right into verse 6 saying listen, that being the first word, that's such a demanding and commanding word, because it's saying listen, this is important. It's saying listen, know that these things are trustworthy. Know that wisdom is true. Know that wisdom is just. Know that it's not crooked or perverse. And that's direction from God. We have to follow that. And also, a lot of times, I think we will block out God's voice when we're in tough situations. But in those times, we really have to lean in and listen to what He's saying. So verses 6 through 8 are such good reminders of that. So then verse 9 switches to sort of the people who have been faced with tough decision making. And it says, "To the discerning, all of them are right. They are upright to those who have found knowledge." And discernment is just the ability to judge well. So the discerning are the people who are faced with a tough decision and have the ability to pick what would God do in this situation. So an example of this could be, you're not invited to something. We've all been in that situation. You could sit there, scroll on your phone through social media and see everything that you're not a part of. But good discernment is seeing, oh, I can get up and go read my Bible. Oh, I can get up and go spend time with God. Oh, I can go be productive. And knowing that that's the better choice, that's discernment. So in short, discernment is just the ability to fight your flesh and always choose what God would choose in situations. And we're blessed with this. This is something that we pray for. We pray to have discernment. All right, so then moving into verses 10 and 11, I love these verses because, again, it's just nailing it into your head, how important wisdom is in your life. And verse 10 says, "Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than voice of gold. For wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her." We have to believe that last part, that nothing you desire can compare with her. Meaning that nothing that my flesh wants, nothing that I desire is as important or as perfect or as powerful as wisdom can be in my life. So in the first part of Proverbs 8, we learned how important wisdom and discernment is in our lives and how we should all have it, we should all be searching for it, and how it'll always be there for us when we need. And now in the second part, the Bible does this a lot. In the second part, it's going to show us examples and it's going to tell us what not to do. And in many situations, it's much easier to know what not to do than what to do, because surprise, surprise, the world's always going to give us things that we shouldn't do. So starting the second half of this with verse 12, we have, I, wisdom, dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior and perverse speech. Counsel and sound judgment are mine. I have insight, I have power. So that tells us what not to do. It tells us what we should hate. And it tells us to fear the Lord is to hate evil. Hate pride and arrogance, all those things. So if we're faced with this decision that we have to make, and we're looking for that wrong option, if it involves arrogance, we know that we shouldn't pick that, because it's telling us right here that we hate arrogance. Now, just because we know the wrong answer, it doesn't mean that we're going to be confident in the other answer or the other option in the decision, but that's where faith comes in, and that's where we know that, well, I know I'm not going to do this, but I can put my faith in this. And the next verses 15 through 21 is something that the Bible does a lot too, and that's give examples of things that have happened to people and in their lives because they learned the lesson that was taught. So I'm not going to read all the verses, but it basically just talks about how rulers and kings are in the position they are because of the power that wisdom and discernment held in their lives. And then it goes even above princes, kings, and nobles, and it says in verse 22, the Lord brought me forth as the first of his works. The first out of everything that God did. Wisdom was the first. And then it goes on to talk about how the Lord used wisdom in everything that he made. And we know that all things are created through him. So that just shows you how important wisdom is. And if the Lord used wisdom to do all these things that he did, then we know that we should too. So after listing all these great things and everything that the Lord did with wisdom in his life and discernment in his life, it says in verse 30, then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world, and delighting in mankind. So now that's the mindset that we have to have. We always have to know that wisdom's at our side. Always, always, always. And that's a blessing from God. It says delighting in mankind. Wisdom was gifted to us, and it's always there. Going back to verse 1 that said, does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? It's always there. It's always there. We just have to access it. And now at the end of this, we have this personal direction given to us from the Lord. And it's verses 32 through 36 that say, now then, my children, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Listen to my instruction and be wise. Do not disregard it. Blessed are those who listen to me, watching daily at my doors, waiting in my doorway. For those who find me find life and receive favor from the Lord. But those who fail to find me harm themselves. All who hate me love death. And that's really pointing to the fact that God blessed the earth with wisdom. It's there for us, but if we aren't constantly looking for it and constantly wanting it, then we will not receive it. So this is practice this decision making and looking for this discernment and this wisdom in small decisions in your life. Don't wait for the biggest decision of your life to try and find this, because it might not be there. So thank you guys for listening. I hope that you'll start to use some discernment and decision making in your life, and you'll always keep searching for more and more wisdom and knowledge.